Welcome back to another painting vlog with Wine of the Nations Rage. This is part 4 of the Institution of the Heart. Been working on it a little bit for the past couple of days. This is where I stand. I really don't want my shadow right there because it's already very dark. So I just wanted to go over a couple things and show you what I've been doing. I've actually been laying in some detail at the end of the hallway, and I'm working my way out using the raw umber and the mixing white to put some texture on the doors, but I'm also using the Payne's Gray in the same way that I've been using it throughout the whole course of the painting. Now as I move forward to the next set of doors, I'm going to go neutral with my shadow. So I'm going to move from the Payne's Gray. I'm going to mix my warm shadow with the Payne's Gray, which is my cool shadow. And I'm repeating the same steps every time I put in the next step for the painting. I'm using the same principle for space, using color temperature to suggest space. I'm starting to get more saturation in my color at this point. But for the shadow itself, I'm still using these cool, neutral, and warm shadows. So I'm going to do on camera the middle section of doors, and I'm going to use the neutral gray for the shadows there. And then I'm going to move forward to the foreground set of doors. I'm going to use the warm shadow there. From that point on, I'm going to have to do some more detail with the walls and try to smooth some of this out. Try not to make it any lighter than it is, but just kind of smooth things out, maybe add a little bit more detail. I don't want to go extremely heavy on detail in the foreground. I've put quite a bit in the background, but my goal is to kind of pull the eye inward to the center of the painting. And if I use too much detail in the foreground, it's gonna kind of mess the balance of that up. So I'm trying to use a little bit more detail in the background, which is kind of it's counter intuitive to, you know, what they normally say you want to put more detail in the foreground of something, especially a painting, and put less detail in the background. But because I'm trying to pull the viewer's eye into the painting, I'm going to focus more detail into the center or the background and not have as much detail in the foreground. Now, there are areas that will reflect the light coming from the main light source. I have to map those out exactly where I want to put the highlights, but I haven't gotten that far yet. I also want to kind of redefine some of the lines on the floor. Now, I may have, like I said in the last video, I made a mistake by going so dark. Part of me is glad that I went so dark, because it really, when I did that, it helped me visualize my my overall outcome and what I want the painting to be like when it's done. At the same time, I lost a lot of information from the original concept drawing when I went so dark, because I lost a lot of my lines. So whenever I tried to do the modeling phase, especially in the floor, I lost a lot of those lines, and that's why those lines, they're not horrible, but they're not that good either. They just need to be redefined. So I need to go back over some of that stuff, and that's fine. I'm not in a huge rush to get this done, but I wanted to take my time with it, and I wanted to make sure that I got the colors right. I wanted to make sure that I got the tone for everything right. And there's still quite a bit of detail that's going to have to be added into the background when it's all said and done. But in this video, I would like to get as much of the wood work done as I possibly can, and then if I have time, maybe even try to go back over some of this tiling in the floor. I apologize for my last video. I was actually coming down with sickness. I don't know, you may be able to tell by my voice that I just wasn't 100% top notch. By the end of the day, when I had painted for 14 hours, I just wasn't feeling great, and so I apologize for that. But I'm ready to get back to it and get back to painting, so let's do this. Welcome. Alright, so I've got my theory tested and proven to my liking, and so like I said, going in with some neutral shadow on the second row of doors, filling in everything with dark, and I've just been repeating processes over and over again, the same basic processes throughout this entire painting, and that is I'll put a layer on individually at a time, and then I'll go back over that layer that I'm adding with another layer. So I'm doing what's known as alla prima or wet on wet here. I'm using the glazing medium, which is also for blending, to my advantage when I'm doing this, because I found that it's just the best way to manipulate the paint itself and get some really fine lines and some really fine details. When I get the paint down to that consistency to where it's actually blending well on the canvas, it's the best way for me to paint, I've noticed. But in order for it to work right, I actually have to have a wet layer going on top of another wet layer, and that way I can work it in. I can take that short bristled brush that you see there. I've actually got about 3 different brushes that I'm using while I'm doing this, but it seems to be the best way. And what I'm doing is I'm using the same neutral shadow that I've been using throughout this entire painting, but I'm adding raw umber on top of that, and I've actually added a new color to my palette at this point. I decided to do this today, and I decided that it would be necessary. So what I've done is I've taken ivory black and also worked that into the neutral shadow. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a tritone effect, and I'm just adjusting everything so that it's well blended, but there are obvious areas of highlight where things are lighting up the surface of the doors. I'm also adding the ivory black to add some depth and some even darker shadow, so that it's not just 2 tones that are blended together, it's actually a 3rd tone, which is making it a deeper shadow. At that point, I move to the foreground, and what I'm doing right here is I'm redefining the lines that I had originally put in. I'm holding the canvas at certain angles to try to find those lines and get them as accurate as I possibly can. I know it's not proper to do what I'm doing right here, but it is helping me find those lines that I lost when I put that really dark overtone in a couple episodes ago. So after I did that, I'm just repeating the same process, the same method that I used on the middle section of doors, except I'm using the warm shadow here, which is that raw umber and ultramarine blue mixed together at a ratio to where it's a warmer shadow than cooler. So I'm using more raw umber than ultramarine blue, and it's actually giving me that warm shadow. The highlight that I'm using is the soft mixing white that I have, and the good thing about that stuff is that it will bring the tone up slightly in the color that you're using. The good thing about it is it's not like titanium white, and when it dries, it tones itself down quite a bit, I've noticed. And that's one thing that I've learned a lot with, and even struggled a lot with this particular painting, is just trying to figure out how things are going to change as the paint itself dries, because I've found that my tones will adjust themselves as the paint dries, and that's the normal thing for oil paint to do. So I've just been trying to, take mental notes of how the paint changes as it dries, and that way I can have some foresight into what I'm doing, and I'll have a better idea as to how to tone certain things and how to add value to certain things as I work. I'm actually adding some texture and some shape into the lower section of the walls here too, where I'm actually putting in wood panels into the lower section of the walls. I hadn't originally planned on doing that, but I thought that it would look good overall, so I decided to go with that route. And maybe one day I'll be able to do a painting vlog without hyperlapsing my work. But again, I'm a very slow painter. It's because I'm still in the learning process. Absolutely still in the learning process. So it takes me a long time to get this stuff done. And I'm not doing it on a really consistent basis. So a lot of times when I paint, it's almost like I'm coming back to it from a long time of being absent and without it. So I'm having to pick things up again and just kind of get myself into the state of mind to do it fluently. So sometimes it takes several hours for me to actually start painting fluently. Alright, that's gonna do it for episode 4 of the painting vlogs with the Institution of the Heart on Wine of the Nations Rage. This is what I ended up with. Painted for almost 12 hours today. This is what I've got as of now. Getting kind of close to almost finishing the biggest part of it. I do want, like I said, I do want to go back over the tiles and smooth up some of those lines and kind of fix the perspective on it, kind of touch up some of the tiles and the shapes of them, which is going to be kind of time consuming. I don't know that I'll do that on camera, but I did get a lot accomplished today. I got my goal accomplished. I really just wanted to get the doors finished. They're finished, but you guys might be able to tell that something important is missing from the doors. Can you tell what it is? There's no doorknobs. So I've got to do the doorknobs. I've also got to figure out what I'm going to do with the windows up at the top. Other than that, some touching up on the walls and the ceiling, adjusting the tone again on the walls and the ceilings, but I'm going to do that after I finally put in the light source coming from behind the door in the center. And yeah, so I feel like I accomplished my goal for today. I feel like I did what I wanted to do with the doors. I didn't want to add too much detail to the doors, like I said at the beginning. I just wanted to add enough to where, you know, it would look decent and it would look fine and fit and everything. Is what I'm trying to say, is that it would fit, but it wouldn't be highly detailed, because like I said, I'm trying to move the viewer's eyes into the center of the painting to where they're not focusing as much on, you know, the detail of the outside, the border of the painting, but rather I want your eyes to literally drift into the center where that door is. But yeah, just see it a little bit closer. There it is. Yeah, so thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in part 5, and you know, hopefully there won't be, but maybe just a few more episodes and this painting will be done. All right, I'll see you then. Later.